Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on this awesome event. My name is Erik Ejlskov Jensen. I'm known online as Erik EJ, and this session is about how you can improve your database design with T-SQL static code analysis. So let me just give a little bit of background about myself. I've been working with SQL Server and usually in combination with .NET development for many, many years. And I've been an MVP, both a data platform and now currently a developer technologies MVP. And my passion is making life better for database developers, particularly .NET developers, but not necessarily just those, and also being able to please the DBA in the room, whether that be somebody in a team or somebody actually given the application to run at a later stage. So what challenges could you be facing, and what I'm showing you help you address? So one of the things is runtime errors in the database due to on-code syntax errors. If you're not building your database scripts before you're deploying them, this could happen. You don't have a standard approach to naming or other database design business rules, meaning that you don't have a formal way of naming stuff, or you don't have a formal set of rules that you think that your database designs in your company or in your development group should refer to. You don't have a qualified review of schema design, and maybe if you have it, it's happening very late in the process, so you get feedback from somebody else, and then you have to change a lot of stuff, which can be challenging. With this approach that I'm describing, you get instant feedback while you're actually coding or building your application. So you also missing out on a cross-platform build and deployment support with some of the current tooling, and you're not being able to take advantage of proper NuGet integration, i.e. the ability to, instead of referencing database projects like you sometimes have to do, if you have queries across databases, you can actually, with this approach, you can actually use NuGet packages and also share rules, analyzer rules as NuGet packages. So what is the process that we're looking into? The first part of it is to create a SQL project, which imports SQL scripts, or you can create them from scratch, of course. And then you can run a build and analyze process. The build process produces a DAG pack, and the analyze process produces potential problems that you can address in your SQL code before you say that this is what is the final design and the final DAG pack is going to look like. A DAG pack is a zip file that you can then deploy, and underlying all this is a library called DAGFX supplied by Microsoft, which enables a lot of the tools that are running all parts of these processes. Without further ado, let's jump into the demo. I have an empty solution here in Visual Studio, and everything I'm showing you can be done both in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. It's not particularly platform dependent at all, but Visual Studio has some really nice way of showing error lists. So I'm just going to use that for this demo purposes. I don't know if you're aware, but if you have Visual Studio Community, it's normally thought of as a tool that can only be used by open source developers or very small companies. But if you're doing SQL related development, there's actually a special sentence or special phrase in the license agreement for Visual Studio Community that you're allowed to do that in any enterprise, as long as you're not producing .NET libraries and other things, only projects that relate to SQL Server development. So let's start by adding a new project. And the easiest way to get started is to install some templates that we supply in an open source project that I maintain. The way to do that is to install the templates. So I have gone to the terminal in Visual Studio and will now install the templates with the .NET new install. And then the name of the templates is msbuild SDK SQLPro.templates. msbuild SDK SQLPro is a project that I help maintain that allows you to build cross-platform DAG packs, both in Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, and basically any other environment, even from command line environments and on build agents, of course. So I'm going to install these templates. I think I probably have them already installed. I will just proceed and go and add a new project. Use the template, SQL Server Database Project, msbuild SDK SQLPro. Click Next. And choose this as a name for the project. When I create the new project, I can choose which SQL Server version my code addresses. So this will correspond to the version that's actually deployed, meaning that this will prevent you from using features that are new if you are targeting older versions of a SQL Server. And as you can see, also some of the special SQL Azure variants are supported as part of this. We'll just stick with SQL 160, which correspond to SQL Server 2022. And for now, we will just disable code analysis. So let's create the project. So that created the project file. And let's just have a quick look at it. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So this is a project file, and this looks like a C# project file if you're used to those, but it's actually a file which purpose of life is to hold .SQL files, SQL script files, and to build a DAG pack. And you can see there's also references to a couple of packages with rules inside them. Down here, we will enable those later. Initially, we will just try to get some objects into this project. As you can see, there's no SQL scripts in it at the moment. One way to do that is to use add new item. This can also be done from the command line, and then go to SQL Server and add, for example, a database table. So this is like we have built-in templates to add individual object types in SQL Server as part of this template pack that we just installed. So I will add a table, and then it will add table 1, and I can start renaming it and start working with it. That's one way to do it, but instead, let's actually import an existing database, because often you already have some data in your existing database. So some definitions in your existing database that you want to put under source control. And so we'll start with that, and I will just copy the command to do that here. So from the console, I will run SQL package. So sorry, yeah, maybe I should just show that. So I have also installed something called so SQL package, which is a Microsoft supplied .NET tool, which you can install with this command. .NET tool install -g Microsoft SQL package. I already have it installed. And with that, we can run various commands from anywhere in your session or from any command prompt. It's a .NET command line tool. And one of the things that it can do is to extract the schema of an existing database into files. And if we examine this command line a little bit, I'm invoking SQL package with the extract action. I'm putting a special property here, which has been introduced quite recently, that you can actually put it to a file system. So I will use this way of organizing the extracted files so that it will create a folder for each schema, and then it will create, under that, it will create a folder for each object type. So it will be like DBO tables, DBO views, and so on. Then I need to specify a connection string to my database. I'm just connecting to my local Chinook sample database. And then I need to put in the target file tables or whatever target file. It needs to point to an empty directory. So it will put the stuff in a little bit quirky here, but it will put what I pull out in a folder called tables underneath our project here. So let's run that command. It will connect to my database server and read the schema from the database, all the object definitions from my Chinook database, basically create table statements, because I think that's the only objects that are in, maybe even some indexes that are in the Chinook database. And I did it in the wrong place. We need to go here. Let me just do it one more time. And the tables folder will appear here. I will just move it up one bit so we don't need to have this additional level of folders here. And then we have underneath that, we have tables. That's the only type of object that's in this database. And then for each table, we have a file that defines the table with indexes and create table statement, potentially any foreign keys and primary keys as part of the create table statement. So now we can build our project. And what does build mean? It means that it will include, if we look at the build output here, it will include all the files that are in this folder and add them to the DACPack. And it will also check that they are syntactically correct. That means that everything here is parsable SQL. So if I put something crazy, like I want to make this album a primary key, an int x type that I just invented for this purpose, and then I do another build. I will get some build errors saying that this I don't know what int x is. So just to make sure that you understand the difference between build and analyze. Build is syntax checking that everything is syntactically correct according to the T-SQL language dialects. And if you also noticed, we'll just do another build. Now hopefully I fixed my build error, and we should be able to see that now actually a DACPack file is produced. Let's just try to have a closer look at the DACPack file which was produced. It's, as I said before, it's actually just a zip file, meaning you can just open it with your favorite archive browser, and inside it there are just some XML files, and those XML files describe the schema of your database in a object-oriented fashion, so to speak, but serialized as XML. Given this DACPack, we can now take that DACPack and deploy that against the test, dev, or production database. You can also use SQL package, the SQL package tool I showed before. It has various other commands, so it has various other actions, basically. So it has this extract action was what we could take advantage of to get our schema extracted from our database, but it has another action called publish, which is like the magic part of a SQL package. Sorry. So instead of So this is the magic part. What publish does, it takes what you describe as your we could describe as your desired state in your DACPAC file, and then it will look at the production database, the target database. So you point this publish command to a DACPAC file, and also point say I want to target this server, also supplying a connection string for that, and then it will make an advanced comparison of the two schemas, and it will then reason about what do I need to change to reach the desired state that's described in the DACPAC in a non-destructive way. So it will it will never drop tables, it will never delete data. It will always move your schema forward without any data loss. Unless you deliberately want to do that, but that's probably a bit out of scope for this discussion. So now let's try to enable code analysis. So as I mentioned before, we have two code analysis libraries installed as well. Yeah, they have to happen to have my name on them as well. I'm sorry. These are actually two sets of rules that I have resurrected from the GitHub grave, so to speak. They were there on GitHub, but they had not been maintained for about over 10 years, so they weren't really usable anymore because software moves on. But I have now made them usable and also added some additional rules based on community feedback and inspiration from other tools and so on. So in all, we are now have a rule set of over 140 analyzer rules that you can run against your SQL code base. So we will make this code analysis entry here true and try to run the build again. And now you can see we're getting 32 warnings about some rule violations. And this is one of the reasons why I'm demoing this in Visual Studio, because it has this nice grid for navigating rules, and you can filter the rules and so on. You will also notice that there's a link to the rule in each of the rule descriptions here. So if we go to one of those URLs, I'm actually providing a description of the rule with some examples and some textual description. It varies a bit from rule to rule how much documentation there is. At this same location, I maintain a list of all the rules that are in these rule sets, where you can read more about them and dive into them and maybe consider whether you should apply them or not. And you can see it's a very long list. Basically, the rules fall in three categories. Rules that adhere to design, like things you should not use, things you can do, but maybe you shouldn't be doing. And these rules are based on experience of many DBAs over many years and are really mature. Some of them you can argue against, but let's take that later. What you do about that? There's also rules regarding naming, and there's also rules that relate to things that could improve performance. So it's not rules about bad syntax, because that's the build will take care of this. So these are opinionated rules about how you can do better in terms of naming, performance, and general design, things you should avoid or things you should consider. So if we go back to Visual Studio and look at the error list again, so you can see there's certain rules. These are just analysis of these tables in Chinook, and even then, you can see there's a number of rule violations. So let's see what we can do about that.
Erik, before you move on to fixing those rules,
Yes,
we've got a couple
yes,
questions.
sure.
One of them was on the YouTube stream, and that was whether the analyze script also has further usage beyond just syntax issues.
Yeah, it's actually not syntax issues, as I just mentioned. It's opinionated rules about things you should or should not be doing. So it goes well beyond that, and
Perfect.
that's why of course it's also important that you can, as a team, decide whether those rules apply to you, your specific use case or not. We'll
Yeah.
we'll dive into that. Yes.
Perfect. Good answer. There's also a comment on YouTube from Geeky Greeky that says, "Thank you for resurrecting these rule sets." So that's worth mentioning.
Thanks a
Uh,
lot.
One other question from Simon on Slack has said, "I just finished setting up my database as the SDK style SQL Server database projects. Is this project template type easy to migrate to? I'd love to make use of this fairly robust rule set."
Um, hmm, Interesting question. Yeah. So you can actually use these rules as package references with SDK style projects, just like I showed here. You can do that. So these rules that I publish as NuGet packages, you can actually also use with the Microsoft supplied SDK style projects, but you cannot use them as package references inside Visual Studio. Even if you use the Visual Studio support for SDK style projects.
Okay, cool. Good answer. Thank you.
I can also add off the record that maybe the future for SDK style projects in Visual Studio is not so bright.
Perfect. Cool.
Yes.
All right, back over to you. That's all the questions for
Yes.
now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so as we can see, maybe this rule, like we know that we are using columns for the same column name, and we have different schema definitions for those columns names. So like we have first names, but we use in varchar 20 one place and then in varchar 40 in another place is the example here. Maybe we are okay with that. Maybe it's fine, and we actually want to generally just get rid of that rule. So we can do that with excuse me. So we can do that by adding a rule filter. And how do we do that? So let me just find some place for that. So you simply add a code analysis rule setting here, and this is a comma separated list of filters. And a filter consists of, if we go back to the error list, it consists of the namespace for the rule. For these rules, it's SQL Server.rules. For other ones, that's the only ones I see. We have different rule sets, like at least 3 is involved here, the Microsoft supplied one, and then SQL Server rules, and another set called smells, but they're obviously not in action for these particular set of scripts. But let's just consider SQL Server rules. So you put first the namespace part, and then a dot, and then the actual number of the rule, which is displayed in this column. So it's SRD0047. So here we can do that. And then we can see now we had 32 warnings. We'll just rebuild, and that will build the project again, and then also run analysis one more time. And we'll get only 23 warnings this time. Another approach, so this will disable the rule for the entire disable the rule for the entire backpack, for the entire build. Another thing you can do is you can actually disable rules for each individual file. So let's say we have a rule here for a rule that applies this SRN 007 that applies to playlist track, saying that the index does not follow the company naming standard. Please use a format that starts with IX playlist track something. And we actually okay with the index naming on this particular table, but we are actually willing to apply the rule on all the other tables that we have in play. So, for example, we do intend to fix the name of our foreign key in the track database definition or table definition. Sorry. So let's just see if we can just target this single SQL file with a particular rule. And in order to do that, it's a little bit quirky, but it's possible. You add a file called static code analysis.suppressMessages.xml to the root of your project. I don't know why it's just not embedded in directly in the project file, but it isn't. But just let's shrug our shoulders and go with it. So we'll go and add some XML file and call it this special. This has to be this name, static code analysis.suppressMessages.xml, and then we'll add some content to it. So we can add more to this, but this is just an example that will exclude this single file. So you can have more suppressed file entries along here. And of course, for each file, you can suppress multiple rules. So if we build again, I will actually just go back and not do this. If we build again, now we were on 23 warnings. So we'll rebuild. And now we will be on still on 23 warnings. What did I do wrong? It's not SRD, it's SRN 007. Yes, that's what I did wrong. Rebuild, and now we should see that we have these. I think there was a couple of warnings, or maybe even more, that actually apply to this file, but they no longer apply. But it's like the rule SRN 0007 is still active, just not for that particular file. So this should give you the enough flexibility to be able to disable rules where you as a team decide that they don't apply to you. There's also some advanced options to actually disable some rules inline in your SQL scripts, like in your stop procedure and so on. I have more documentation on that on my GitHub repo. This is not really kind of a standard way to do it. This is like the supported way to do it and works with all the tools. This also works in SQL Server data tools. This way of ignoring rules for a particular file.
Erik, another question on exceptions specifically. Is there a way to add an exception so the rule would not apply to specific columns, like columns name description, for example?
I'm not sure exactly what okay, so you want to filter, say, if this column has this particular name, I don't want the rule to apply. I don't think so. I don't think so. No, not at the moment. But I'm open to ideas for additional rules.
Should those be issues on your GitHub, or?
They should be reported on the GitHub repo and SQL Server rules repo. Yes, if you go to my GitHub profile, it will be prominent there, and you can propose it there. Yes.
We'll share that in the chat in Slack.
Of course.
One more question if you have time for
yes,
another one.
Perfect.
This is more of like an organization question, but how would you organize a SQL Server database project in Visual Studio with several interrelated databases where the interconnections are implemented using synonyms, but at some point there are circular references between them and they need to be built in parallel or in different batches? Whew.
Okay, that was how bad can you? Basically, if you're doing if you're doing that, how do you even deploy a new system without it being broken at some point in time? So you probably should maybe even stand back and think about why and how did we get into this mess. Sometimes you of course have an issue with this mess that you can't get out of it, but it's definitely possible to split out your database built into multiple dark packs and then reference those as a NuGet package. So build them as NuGet packages, share them as NuGet packages, and then reference those in other projects. But I'm not sure that solves the circular reference problem in any way, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's a tricky question for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you. That's all for now.
Cool. So that's all fine. Let's just try to add a stop procedure to this project. New item, SQL Server, stop procedure. Just call it procedure 1. Has this kind of text here, and then we will add. Wait for delay. 10. So it's actually like this. 10 seconds. So we will add this to a stop procedure, and we will run. I will not run any analysis on it. Let's say we know that there isn't a rule for this, and we definitely don't want to wait for delays in any of our stop procedures. What can you do? Well, you can either hope there's a rule, but you can actually also create your own rules if you know a little bit about C#. So let's just quickly go back to the slides. So a SQL package consists of a command line interface, and then that it also depends on a number of other things that are published as NuGet packages. I mentioned DAGFX before, but DAGFX is also composed of multiple other NuGet packages. One of them, of course, is SQL Client, which is the ADO.NET driver that communicates with the SQL Server over the wire, be it on premises or in cloud. But then there's another package that this DAGFX package depends on, which is transact_SQL.scriptdom. And that is a package that allows you to look at SQL code and then get it treated as if it was an object. So then you can look at it as if it's an object graph, and that will allow you to analysis and do all kinds of interesting things with the SQL. And one of the things that you need to know a little bit about when you're creating your own rules is how to work with scriptdom. Luckily, there are some good examples out there. I know there's a guy from Microsoft, can't remember his name anymore, who has a big blog post about all with a lot of links to repositories. I will try to find a link to his blog post and share it later. But in essence, you need to work with this way of looking at SQL code like it was an object structure, and then you can do interesting things with it. The SQL client is itself, the code for that is actually open source on GitHub, and also the transact SQL scriptdom library, which is this SQL parser library, so to speak, is also open source on GitHub. DAGFX itself is not open source, and it probably never will be. So let's just have a quick look at a sample rule and see what it takes to create and use that rule. So I have added this project file here for the rule. It's also just a standard .NET package that I'm creating here, and I'm referencing my DarkFX library, and that will in turn also include the Transact SQL script DOM parser and SQL client. And then in order to publish the rule, I need to add a little bit of NuGet magic in here. So this will take the build rule and put it into the .NET NuGet package in this particular path. Then it will be picked up by for example, our build SDK, our open source build SDK, and it will also be picked up by the Microsoft build SDK. Let me also mention that while we're talking about who can use these rules, we had this question before. The rules that I publish, they actually also include a .NET Framework DLL file that you can manually grab, pull into Visual Studio, put in a special secret folder. I have a blog post about it. And then you can actually also enable the rules to run in Visual Studio. But that's a little more complex when it comes to your build servers, particularly if it's hosted build servers and things like that. So definitely, if you want the flexibility of building this everywhere and running this everywhere, you need to go the .NET route. So let's have a closer look at this rule. So basically, you need to create a class that exposes the export code analysis rule attribute, which is a description of the rule. And by having this attribute in your DLL file, that will allow the DarkFX framework to discover the rule. And then you need to add a class that inherits from, what is this? Maybe I need to build it. No. Then I need to add a class that inherits from SQL code analysis rule. And I can, in the constructor, I can tell which element types does this rule actually apply to. I can also specify which platforms do this rule apply to. For example, I can have a rule that only applies to SQL Server 2017, SQL Server 2017 or later, for example. So this will filter what rules, what parts of my schema this rule applies to. And then I implement an analyze code, which will get a rule execution context. And then I can get the model element, the part that this rule will be analyzing, and inspect that with using the SQL script DOM methods, basically extracting, looking for any wait for delay statements in this fragment. And if there are any, except some special case ones down here, I will create a problem for that and then return the list of problems. So if I find any wait for statements in my SQL statement that is passed to this, it will create a rule problem saying, hey, Erik, you shouldn't really be doing this. With this text up here, avoid using wait for delay statement in stored procedures, function, and triggers. So I have previously built, we can't see this. It looks a bit strange. So I'm just going to open this. No, I'm just going to open it in File Explorer actually. So let's have a look. So what I've done now, based on this project file here, I have said generate package on build true. So when I build this, it will actually create a, what happened to File Explorer here? It will create a NuGet package, which is this one. And that NuGet package, I can then put in a private or public NuGet feed. I can also just install it in my project here with this add command. So we just save this and go back to the add command here. So I have built this package now, and then I will just use this temporary feeds. Am I in the right place here? So now I'm adding this package to this project here by running this command, using this folder as a temporary feed. And if you look at the project file, it will now have this additional package added to it, the sample rules file. And we can run build again. And if we look close, if we look down here, we can see that the sample rule was applied during analysis, and saying wait for delete statement was found in DBO procedure 1, just as expected. So you can create your own rules, share them. You can also contribute them back to the community if you think they could be useful for everyone. I'm happy to consider adding them to the rule set. I have also already added like 5 additional rules based on what I resurrected, on top of what I resurrected from GitHub.
But we got a question, Eric, on script DOM.
Yes.
Is there a way in script DOM to just get a list of tables used in a query? This is from Mala, a long-time script DOM user, so aware of how it works, but frustrated with some limitations.
There probably is, yes, because this is what these analyzers are doing. So definitely there is, yes. A good way to explore ways of doing that is to explore the source code of these rules, and how they're reasoning about the SQL that they gets presented to them.
Cool. Good tip. Thank you.
That's how I learned it.
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
the easiest way is hacking it apart, isn't it?
Exactly.
Cool, perfect. You're at
Yes.
15 minutes till time, just as a heads up, but
Perfect.
no more questions for now.
Perfect. So this is all fine. So now we have gone through the whole lifetime of doing things early in the process. As a team, we have decided what rules do we want to apply to our code base, or even if we want to refactor a legacy code base, maybe we don't want so many rules to apply to that. How can we tweak where the rules are kicking in? And these rules not only run while I build locally, they also run on your build server, because it's all NuGet packages. So the NuGet packages with the rules are also restored when you're building on your build server. And of course, you can configure your build so that rule violations are also considered errors. But if you are not doing all this with, if you're just sitting working with a SQL script like this procedure here, and actually just want some feedback on it, what can I do? Because this is also about building and adding things to projects and so on. But I'm just sitting in Visual Studio authoring this. I'm not really interested in working with database projects. It's not part of what I want to do. What can you do? I have also, so what you can do is I have also published or wrapped these rules in a command line tool, meaning that command line tool can take input, which can be just a SQL file. It can be a folder of SQL scripts. It can even be experimentally a DAC pack, and it can even be experimentally a live database. I'm saying experimentally because there are quite a few things that can break in these two last scenarios. But for looking at a single file, you can actually run this command line tool. And I have added this tool Okay, so right now it's just a command line tool that you can install, and you can use it from the command line. You can also just use it from, or you can use it, you can integrate it with Management Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, and Visual Studio. But I'm also working on adding it more natively into both Visual Studio and SQL Server Management Studio. It's coming up, it's not there yet. So you do .NET tool install in -g Erik Ej.T-SQL analyzer.cli. Sorry about the long name. Okay, even longer. Surprisingly, I already have the tool installed, but that's what you need to do to get the tool. And then you can write T-SQL analyze from any command prompt, help, and get some examples of how you can use it. So you can analyze a single script, analyze all the scripts in a folders or in a folder structure. You can have like put wildcards, and you can also put a rule filter when you're doing analysis. You can target a specific server version. You can save the analysis results to an XML file. You can also do reformatting. You can also take a Fabric zip file, which is the format you export your database schema in from Fabric apparently, and analyze that. And you can also experimentally analyze a live database. So, and also one of the things you can do is you can actually relatively easily integrate it with Visual Studio by adding it as a command here in the tools command, by going to external tools and then adding this stuff here. It's probably documented in the README file for this tool on NuGet, because this is just a NuGet package. So that if you go to NuGet and search for this name, the name that I just typed, you will find the README file for it. But basically, you have to do a little bit of magic sprinkling here. And if you are in a procedure, you can actually just hit tools and then T-SQL analyze, and it will give you the results here as the text in this output window. So now we can see some of the smells rules kicking in. We should add a no count to the stop procedure, and we should finish query statements with a semicolon, and int should be uppercase. All good recommendations that you can read more about in the links. And if you would double click, you'll be taken to the if the analyzer is capable of telling where exactly the problem is, which is not always is, unfortunately, it will take you directly to the line in question, where so you can immediately start fixing the rule. So this will enable you to do ad hoc analysis of single files and also various other sources. And I'm working on a more integrated experience, maybe even something that runs in the background while you're authoring your SQL script. Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll see. So, but not only that, we can actually also use this as a MCP server. What is MCP server? An MCP server is an abbreviation for something called Model Context Protocol, which is a way for an AI agent to speak to something that knows something in a semi-structured way. So it's like a particular protocol for speaking with something else. It can be a web service, an external web service, but it can also be a local command line tool, like, for example, T-SQL Analyzer. And I have enabled an MCP server inside T-SQL Analyzer. meaning that an AI agent, with an AI agent, I mean, for example, GitHub Copilot. So that will enable me to, so much screen stuff here. So I'm just going to open the GitHub chat, Copilot chat window here in Visual Studio. I have a GitHub license. So and I have installed this tool as an MCP server. It's basically about adding some entries in a special JSON file in some kind of shared location somewhere. It's described in the README file, same README file that told you how to do the tools menu option integration. By doing that, that tool will be available inside Visual Studio. And we can see the available tools here. So I can see here T-SQL Analyzer MCP is available to me, and it has one tool called Find SQL Script Problems. So I can ask Copilot, check this file for bad SQL practices. And I also have to be in agent mode where Copilot will propose to fix stuff for me. Whereas in ask mode, it will basically come with some advice, but it will not do actions on anything. So I'm in agent mode where they can actually perform actions like fix the script for me eventually, maybe. So I'm going to ask Copilot to see if it can fix this start procedure for me, come with some proposals for how to improve it anyway. And it's telling me it's calling this external tool with this value, which is the content of the script. And I'm going to allow the tool to run this time. You can also set it to allow to run every time, but yeah, then I won't be able to demo it the next time. And it will actually, as you can see, it's actually using the rule sets because it's actually using the rule that we just built like few minutes ago and saying you should actually apply that rule. And it actually found the source code for it because we also have that in a open somewhere. Spooky, but yes. And has some other ideas that we saw from running the T-SQL analysis on this procedure. So these rules are also in our error left if we do a build. So it comes with these suggestions. And I think it does a lot, probably more than I asked it to do, because it's now doing various things that I don't necessarily need. But at least it gave you some good advice on some potential issue with statement terminators missing. The keyword should be in capital and yeah, unclear business purpose. Yeah, demo purposes, but yes, that's probably also an unclear business purpose. And it actually found these applicable rules. So and did an action plan. And if I say fix this, which I'm not going to do, it will actually fix these rules for me. So this was the AI part of this demo. So my code, let me just quickly have a look at how does the classical SQL project files, that was like the alternative thing I could do in Visual Studio, how does that compare to what I just said here with this open source build project, that SDK that I help maintain. So definitely they can both create, build, and publish a DAG pack. They can both run code analysis. The SQL Porch has 15 built-in Microsoft rules, whereas MS Build SDK SQL Porch has 140 something rules. The more the merrier, I guess. You can also run custom rules. You can do that in SQL Porch. You can also do that in SQL Porch, but it's like you have to manually stitch a file into, even getting up to 140 with these packages that I supply. You have to put files in a folder that you basically should never be putting files in. Whereas with the Build SDK, you can very easily do it, and you can also publish your own rules and use those. Can you run the rules on a hosted agent? Yes, but only the 15 rules, whereas you can run 140 plus your own rules on any hosted agent. By hosted agent, I mean a build agent that's applied, for example, by Microsoft or GitHub for building your software. And can you run custom rules? You cannot run custom rules on a hosted agent if you're using the classical SQL project. Can you build on Linux? No, you can only build a classical SQL project on Windows. This project type that I'm demoing here, you can build both on Linux and, of course, Windows. Is there visual designers or schema compare? Yes, there is, and there is no visual designers or schema compare in our SDK. That's how it is. Maybe for schema compare, we could do something. No immediate plans, but it's certainly something we're considering. Definitely no with visual designers. Probably never going to happen. So can you use NuGet and take advantage of private and public NuGet feeds for sharing DAG pack files or sharing rules? Not with a classical SQL project. It's based on .NET Framework, and yeah, never going to happen. But of course, you can do that with the Build SDK. And can you build SQL CLR DLLs with the SQL project? Yes, you can. You cannot build them with the project SDK because SQL CLRs is very much tied to .NET Framework, so it's definitely not possible. Call to action: add your database schema to source control, enable code analysis locally and in CI, and of course, optionally, create your own rules and contribute them back to the community. This QR code will take you to a GitHub gist or whatever it's called, where there are some links. I think the same links will be shared in the 8KB GitHub repo as well. Yeah, that's it. I'm open for Q&A.
Awesome. That was a really great session. There's a lot of no questions at the moment, I don't think, unless I've missed one, but a lot of people enjoying the session in the chat.
Fantastic.
Some claiming you've already melted brains, so that's a good start to
that's
the
a good start.
conference.
That's a good start. That's good. Yes.
And some people noticed a dog, so that was exciting too.
Of course. Say hello to Teddy. So here are some questions that I commonly get, but yeah, maybe we don't really have time to do it, but yeah. Oh, we have time. Absolutely.
Yeah, hit a couple of these. Go for it.
Okay, so some of these are probably more relevant for like like developers. So I'll skip those. But handling destructive schema changes, how do I do that? What I usually do is there is something called pre-deployment and post-deployment scripts, but you can't handle destructive schema changes in those. You might be tempted to think you can do that, but you cannot. You have to run a script ahead of time before you start doing anything with your DAG pack, even in a pre or post deployment script. So in a post deployment script, you can seed your database with a merge statement, and there's a really nice stop procedure out there somebody created to create is rock solid merge statements based on an existing table, data in an existing table that I usually use for that. For the structure schema changes, you have to create some idempotent SQL in a script that you run ahead of time before you run your DAC-pack. So you have to check, does the database exist? Does this object, does this table exist? And does a column exist if I want to drop a column, for example? And then, of course, also drop the column in your actual schema definition. So this is a community project. So what is MS doing? We touched a little bit upon that. So MS has an offering that, I've already said too much about the state of that in terms of VS that I probably should, but probably appear to the public very soon. Anyway, I imagine. So Microsoft's solution for Visual Studio is a classical SQL project with all the limitations that comes with that. So if you use Postgres, Oracle, MySQL, any other, can I use this? No, you cannot. As maybe it will be clear that it will require a lot of building blocks that don't exist. So like require a script DOM parser for that particular remote relational database system, and it doesn't exist in .NET. If somebody did it, maybe, but even then, Microsoft will probably also have to open source DarkFX in the meantime, and that's probably never going to happen. Does it work on Azure SQL databases? Yes, it does. Works with most of the varieties, even with Fabric and with the Fabric serverless databases and so on, and Fabric SQL database, of course. What if I just want to analyze a script on disk? We have been through this. Just use my T-SQL analyzer. That must be an old question. So can you share parts of a database? We have touched a little bit upon this. So you can use DAC packs and just have an infrastructure where you, for example, if you want to inject some monitoring objects into all your databases, you can share them via DAC pack, and then they will be compart. Then they will basically merge with the user DAC pack and your monitoring DAC pack will be consolidated into these are the sum of tables that will be deployed to my database. And the same way you can do it with dependencies on other databases. So a DAC pack reference can both be objects inside your user database, and it can also be objects that represent another database. So you can do both. I'm not sure that's solving any things with the circular dependencies, but if you have regular dependencies, you can do it. How would this work with EF Core? It's a little bit of a developer question, but let's just take it while we're here. I have tooling, surprise, surprise, that also enables you to point directly to a DAC pack file and then generate a EF Core DB context and model classes. And I use that in production and for many of my projects. So our single source of truth is the database project, and then we run code generation either with a command line tool or with EF Core Power Tools inside Visual Studio to regenerate the code when we make schema changes. And how about .NET Aspire? This project, one of the other maintainers of that has created a .NET Aspire integration that allows you to deploy DAC packs as part of your .NET Aspire setup, meaning that will allow you to. So in Aspire you can you can spin up a SQL Server container, but when you spin it up, it doesn't contain any schema. So with this integration, you can add the schema from the DAC pack, and if you have seed data in your DAC pack, that seed data will also be added to your user database, ready for use by your web API or your Blazor application, etc. I will stop melting brains now.
Oh, that was perfect. That was a great session. Thanks for sharing that. Lots of
Thank you
people
very much,
chatting
Erik.
in the Slack, enjoying it. So